need a Silicon Valley zip code or a New York HQ to make it big? Think again. Entrepreneurs from around the world are choosing Panama. But is it really the ultimate expat business hub, or is it just a paradise pipe dream? Today, we're pulling back the curtain with real, no BS insights from expats who've built businesses in Panama. We're talking hidden opportunities, bureaucratic nightmares, tax advantages, and the real cost of starting up. We'll be answering questions such as, can foreigners really start and own businesses here? Is it as easy as the Instagram influencers claim, or is there a catch? What industries are booming and which ones will eat your investment alive? And the big question, would we do it all over again? This roundtable discussion is raw, unfiltered, and packed with insider secrets that could make or break your decision to launch a business in Panama. If you've ever dreamed of running a business in paradise, this is the conversation you can't afford to miss. Don't go away, because we're about to find out if Panama is truly the best place to start a business abroad. Welcome to another installment of The Real Expats of Panama, a segment of the Panama Podcast, where we cut through the noise and bring you the real scoop on what life in Panama is actually like. Joining me are two powerful co-hosts who know Panama inside and out. Stacey Jenks is our vacation property management expert, and Amanda Gleason is a turnkey decorator. Our special guest today is Andy Atkinson of Pacific Coast Cleaning Services. Andy moved from the UK with his wife and two kids in 2021, even though they'd never been to Panama before.
That is insane. I cannot wait to hear this.
Yeah, we're going to unpack this, so don't go anywhere.
How did your wife not leave you?
Or did she try and you didn't let her?
Stay tuned, because we're going to give you the unfiltered truth, because when it comes to living in Panama, what you don't know could cost you. Welcome to the Panama Podcast, from dreaming to doing. I'm your host, Melissa Darnay. If you want insider tips on living, investing, and having a blast in Panama, go to choosepanama.com and snag your free copy of Panama Uncorked. Andy, the first question we all want to know, what made you move to Panama sight unseen?
So basically, my wife and I, we'd always wanted to live and work abroad. We wanted sort of new adventures. We wanted a better climate. We wanted new opportunities, something different for the kids.
Sound familiar?
That all sounds familiar, but
Yeah.
I visited before I moved.
Yeah, well, that was the plan. That was what we were supposed to do. We weren't setting out to be entirely crazy. We wanted to start our new lives, and not sort of have that sort of temptation to sort of go back if it didn't work. We wanted to go sort of all out and make it
Like
work. And
Cortez burning his ships.
exactly, there we go.
I was thinking, skydiving without a parachute. You just
Yeah, absolutely. We looked at Australia. We looked at New Zealand.
Australia does not make, it's years and years and thousands of dollars with no guarantee that you'll even be approved.
And my wife, she's actually intelligent, unlike myself, and she's got a real job.
Yeah.
She's an aeronautical engineer by background.
Is she really?
She is, yeah, absolutely.
no idea.
I know. And
she
now
married
look
you.
at us. Yeah.
The mystery
Because I'm-
deepens.
Secretly, a lot of people don't know this about me because it's not visually obvious, but I'm actually very good looking. But as soon as I tell people, they start. And we thought we're not doing that. So in frustration, and I Googled easiest places in the world to get permanent residency. Obviously, Panama's bumping up that list, rocking up the top there. And I thought, well, that looks cool, but you couldn't possibly live in South or Central America. It's crazy, right? That's just not possible. And then we did a bit more research and a bit more research and a ton of research. We did all the research we could possibly do from abroad. And we thought, right, that's it. This ticks all the boxes.
Okay, I have to ask, though. It's not that expensive for one of you to come.
Well,
why didn't one of you come?
Because so we'd nailed the research and we're like, right, we're gonna go if it turns out to be everything we think it will, then we'll live there in 12 months' time. And then we came home from work and school respectively this one Friday afternoon. My son put something on and a video popped up on YouTube on the ad saying that the Friendly Nations visa was changing. So we were like, oh no. And this was the Friday. So we had a good think, talk, eat, sleep, pray, whatever about the decision. And then by Monday morning, the house was on the market. It sold Monday afternoon. And 30 days later, we were in the offices of our lawyer in a country that we'd never visited before.
Yeah, you kind of did that all backwards.
We did that all backwards. But the thing, what gave us the comfort and the reassurance was we'd got the kids lined up to be educated online. We thought, right, we'll have to really push that and put everything into that because we're going to have to rely on outside income. So at that point, it didn't seem such a risk because we think, well, right, we're both going to be working online. The kids are going to be educated online. And if Panama is not what we thought it would be, then we can get on a plane and go somewhere else and we can do some traveling and live life a little bit, working online, and then do whatever. So it mitigated that risk. It took away that sort of fear and it enabled us just to go, let's go.
Okay. For that, we have to have a cheers for that.
That is, in all the time I've known you, I've not actually heard that story in its entirety.
Say cheers.
There you go. I'll reach with my big long arm.
I do know Andy's wife, and she is a delightful woman, and we always ask the question, why? Anyway.
Yeah, I suppose she was the only one available at the time. No. No, there's an expression in the UK, I don't know how it translates, but we say that it's a boxing term that I'm punching above my weight. So I clearly, completely and utterly married up.
So that was the most entertaining and crazy and audacious story I've heard in my 12, 13 years in Panama. So cheers to that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So now let's get on to our actual topic, which is business. You land in Panama, a land you've never seen before. You get here, you get your residency, and then you're like, oh my goodness, we have to make some money. What happens then?
So as you say, we landed in this land flowing with leche and hojaldras, and we thought we've got to make some money. So our plan was very
much...
Milk
and honey.
I just mixed that up. But you can have honey on the hojaldra.
You could.
It's actually quite nice. But we were at that time fixed on the fact that we still have to have, outside income. We were never, sort of early on thinking, right, what business are we going to... We had plans that we thought, right, we want to buy a property, we want to have a little bit of land, and here are some uses that we could have for that land and some ways that could generate some income. But it wasn't like what service-led business or what different type of business could we have. That was never really in our minds. So we were just going along doing what we were doing. And then a friend of mine, he had bought some cleaning equipment for his girlfriend's family.
Wow, that says a lot about his
happy
girlfriend's
birthday.
family.
Yeah, pure happy birthday.
Yeah.
They wanted a business and he bought them that equipment. And I think they thought that meant that, it was going to be sort of quite straightforward. It was not. And it was cleaning. And I'd had a cleaning business in the UK for over 20 years at that point. Sounds a lot longer, but it was like a month over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I bought the equipment off him. So it was a good advantage, a good head start because the equipment was already here in the country. I didn't have to bring anything in, didn't have to, didn't have to import anything. So it was great. And we had that opportunity to sort of think, well, we'll give it a try. But we didn't think, it would necessarily sort of set the world on fire, so to speak. But it would give us a chance to see if we could, make a bit of extra money while we're here. And it sort of grew a little bit from there. And it'll never be the world's most exciting business, but it gives, but we are able to run a business and work here with that.
I think your marketing is possibly some of the most entertaining marketing on Facebook.
As you can tell, he's a very boring person.
Correct. I concur. I concur wholeheartedly.
And there's this movement now toward what they call boring businesses. I follow somebody on Instagram, Cody Sanchez, who is like mainstream millionaire, buy boring businesses and run them well, and then buy another one and buy another one and buy another one. Have you thought about how you could expand in Panama past your one business?
Yeah, and to be honest, the thought process is, and everything that I've learned and experienced and witnessed is that you probably agree, I'm sure, that it's a slow and steady process. People come here with big ideas, and I've witnessed friends and acquaintances lose big sums of money because everything's a rush. You've just started this expat life and this expat adventure, and you've got a Facebook account, and you want to use that account to show people at home that everything's ticking really cool in your new life and everything, and of course everyone wants to establish themselves. They want to make friends. They want to have a business. They want to do stuff and get your life kind of where it was before. And had we moved to Australia or somewhere, that's what you'd do. You'd trade life A for life B, the mortgage in the UK for the mortgage in Australia, the aeronautical engineering job there for the one there, and that sort of thing. And I guess that's kind of where people want to be with their life, is that when you're not retired, you kind of got to, you want to show people back home that they've done stuff, and they rush into decisions and they lose a lot of cash. So the one thing that I've learned is that, yes, there will be opportunities. There will be various different opportunities over time, but sort of willing them on just does not seem to end well at all. Do you think?
What would you? Yeah, I mean, we've seen.
I can't ask questions. I've got no mandate to ask questions.
No, I mean, especially out at the beaches, because you get a lot of people. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start a restaurant. I think that's the biggest one that I've seen people. They're going to start a restaurant, and it is not.
And restaurants around the world are the hardest business to make work.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a
Hospitality.
95% fail rate.
Yeah, so
you think you're going to go to another country and open a restaurant and it's going to be successful.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one that I've seen people go, that's what I'm going to do, and it just doesn't.
Definitely.
It doesn't pan out.
Right. Unless you're a restaurateur from another country, it's a hard business.
People bring their skills and their ideas from a different country, and naturally what you want to do, and I'm very hypocritical in what I'm about to say because I had a cleaning business in the UK, although it's very different. There are, there's different climate, different customer base, different everything. Mm-hmm. But, it's very difficult just to think, I used to do this in America, I used to do this in Canada, South Africa, wherever, so I'll just do the same. You've got to spend some time to figure out, does that market exist?
Exactly.
If it doesn't exist, does not immediately flag, wow, there's an opportunity here. It should flag a series of questions that, why does it not exist?
Right.
Is it because there aren't letterboxes and a doorstep delivery service, and therefore that would be an inappropriate business? Okay, forget that one.
Right.
Is it because the people have different aspirations, hopes, dreams, ideas, whatever, so that's not going to work?
Or is the market just too small?
It's crazy small. It's a crazy, crazy small market.
Right. And there's also segments of the market. So there's the Panamanians, and if you're an expat and you don't speak Spanish, can you sell to Panamanians?
Yeah.
Or it's the expats, and the expats come and go. And is that part of the market big enough to do some sort of, regular business for expats? I came from the marketing agency background, and what we always do is say, find the white space. So you've got this graph where there's a cross in the middle. And when you're looking at any industry, whether it's the cleaning or the decor or property management or real estate, it's like, find your white space.
Yeah.
What is no one else doing? But I think a lot of people, like you said, they go too quickly. They're like, okay, let's throw sand against the wall, see what fits, and we're going to throw our life savings with it. And then they haven't put enough thought into it, and they blame it on Panama. It's not Panama's fault. It's their fault for not doing their research.
Yeah, and as someone who's gone through that, look, starting a business where it was pretty much just myself.
Right.
There she is.
Where it was pretty much just myself, and over time it's taking on staff and, a few, assets and tools and things, which even that was like, assets. The thing that was the sharpest learning curve was getting your head around how you need to do business here to be compliant.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's a lot of people that do want to come out and they'll just start up a business, but if you really want to make a go of it, you do need to educate yourself about the taxes and things, the documents you need to have, the fees you need to be paid. And it's all very doable.
And compared to the United States, it's super simple.
And compared to Australia as well.
And there's like 5 regulations. And like even in Texas, in the United States, which is one of the most business-friendly environments in the United States, I heard on a podcast that there's like hundreds and hundreds of regulations for small businesses. And here you don't have that. But like you said, there are a couple that you can't get around.
Yeah. I mean, like, you need a work visa. I didn't even know what that was. So looking back, I would have started that process earlier on.
Yeah.
Because it does take a little while.
Yeah.
But some of the
No, as I was saying, like, and paying the sales tax, like when you do cross the threshold where you do need to pay that. Like for me personally, that was like my accountant's like, okay, so you're on the hook for this now. I'm like, okay, all right. Scramble.
I'm a big girl now.
Wow, things just got really real. So yeah. And saying, I didn't know. Like any government anywhere, they're not going to go, that's okay then. It doesn't matter. Like,
so Amanda, same with you. What do you think is the biggest misconception about people who want to open businesses in Panama?
I think it is underestimating how easy it is. Yes, it is easy, but if you want to do it properly as a a business, not just you consulting. Like there's a lot of people, you can do a consulting business where you're your own person very easily. But once you do start getting things like employees, that's where you really need to
Have more wine.
Have more wine, definitely. Yes, cheers to that.
It's, you know, you do have to know the employment laws here. Like if you are going to have employees and grow a business in that way.
You know, and it makes me chuckle sometimes because would you in your own home country open about a business without consulting an attorney and an accountant? I mean, if you would, I can't even imagine that. So here you have to do the same thing. Talk to your attorney, talk to your accountant, find out what the labor laws are, because there are labor laws, because you can't just hire all your friends.
No, and
You need to
Panama
hire
is
Panamanians.
actually, like, people are surprised because I guess compared to where we're all from, wages are a lot lower, but the labor laws and the protections for employees here, like they do have a lot built in to the employment law to protect
Big
workers.
time.
Right.
And if you if you make a member of staff redundant, or if you fire a member of staff, you would probably expect wherever you come from in the world, that's going to cost you something, right? That's just fine, you know. Here in Panama, if that member of staff quits, they just don't want to come in anymore and they quit, you're paying them to leave, you're paying them a severance, and that's calculated all the time. So for that whole time that employee is with you, that severance calculation, you know, is going up and up and up. They've been with you 5 years, you owe them a chunk of change. 10 years, you know, that can be bankruptcy territory for a whole load of small businesses here because it's so much. And, you know, you look at, if you look at the holidays, which might seem generous to the USA, it's pretty much on standard with the UK. But then you chuck in you include the fact that it's the custom really, or it is the law, not really just the custom, but you've got to take your holidays in one, you know, that 1 month's holidays in one go.
Right, so,
like,
you
hey,
have
boss,
all the holidays, the fiestas, and then they also get a month holiday
in one go, or you can negotiate it to 2 weeks and 2 weeks. But beyond
That's
that,
what I did.
Yeah, you can't break it down. And I don't think you can break it down any more than that. Public holidays takes up a big chunk, so it's very difficult, and you're trying to manage your way around that. And it's a lot of, you know, you've got to be very, very committed.
And a lot of business owners, in business school, they tell you hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
And that really applies here. You know, even though, you know, it might only cost $600 a month for their salary, by the time you roll in all those benefits, they say it averages about 1.8. So instead of paying $600 a month, it's 600 times 1.8. So that would be, someone do the math for me.
That would be at least.
Don't look at me.
So it's not 1,200.
Where's the aeronautical engineer?
But it's about 1,000 or so a month, which still is very reasonable. But you do have to take that all into account. And like Andy was saying, someone who didn't know these laws coming in would have a shock if they've got 10 employees on the hook and they thought they were paying $600 a month and they're actually paying $1,000 a month. Let's switch gears.
Oh,
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Here's a question for the table. What businesses have we seen do well in Panama, and what businesses are crazy fails?
Well, I think we addressed the restaurants.
Restaurants, crazy fail.
Yeah.
Don't come to Panama and open a restaurant.
And there's some good exceptions in there. Like you said about if you do have that experience, you are a restaurateur or whatever. But like I say, there are some exceptions, but the restaurant is gruelingly tough as an industry.
Yes.
I mean, we all know that real estate is where a lot of people come and then they end up in real estate or real estate adjacent. That's what I call myself. I'm real estate adjacent.
And the laws have changed while I've been here for real estate. So it used to be you could be a little bit under the radar, but they've really, you know, buttoned that up. And I'm so fortunate to have been on the inside curve of that. So I was able to stay ahead of that. But I think now it would be hard for an expat to come and be a real estate broker because it is a long and tedious process.
Yeah. And you have to do the exam.
Well, you have to have your cedula for 5 years. You have to take the exam in Spanish.
So that is one where people have come and built some very successful business.
Right.
Very much so.
And if you're looking at the fact that it's a transient community and people are coming and going, then, you know, you think, am I going to open a restaurant? Am I going to open some kind of experience-based business, or am I going to cater to that a little bit? And real estate does that, doesn't it? You know, you can have Airbnb rentals. You can have, you know, if somebody doesn't want to have a high-flying business, but they want to make, you know, that bit of extra cash every month, and they, you know, then buying a property with a casita or two in the garden and having that Airbnb rental and catering to that transient nature of expats is a pretty solid place to be, right?
And you just made a point. Like, there's a lot of people, they don't come here wanting to start a big business.
Right.
They just want something that brings in some money and they enjoy doing. So not
Vacation
everyone,
home that pays for itself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You know, and if we were to put people in buckets, it would be there's some people who need a full-time income.
Sorry to cut you off, but I've got so many people I'd put in buckets. And that's only after 3 years.
cement in the
Oh, how dare you?
And this is my marketing
Can I give you
background.
my ex-husband's name?
So back to the buckets. We've got the full-time, you need a full-time salary. You know, and for a lot of people, if you make $5,000 a month in Panama, you know, you're living a great
crushing
life.
it. You're crushing
it. Then the next bucket is people who want to either retire or pre-retire, but their retirement isn't going to stretch as far as they thought. So they just need a little bit. Maybe it's $500, maybe it's $1,000 extra a month.
You'll find like a lot of, from my observation doing what I do, a lot of people who have like construction or some sort of labor skill, plumbing, electrical.
Oh, yes.
Right.
So especially just servicing that expat community and having the knowledge of, I guess, how the expat community wants some of their trades work done. That's enough for them just servicing that community. They build up a reputation
Exactly.
and doing jobs as they need
somebody wouldn't retire on this, but if somebody, and I've never seen it, I've never seen an expat purely painter and decorator, right? And if somebody went out there and said, hi, I'm a really skilled painter and decorator. I do really steady line work and I put cloths on your floor to protect your tiles. You would be busy. You would make, I'm pretty sure you'd make a living, right? I'm not saying, again, it would set the world on fire.
Right.
But it's in the trades, you know, you can make okay money. You know, people come, they're not going to flip houses and, you know, there's no quick turnaround, quick buck in real estate like there is elsewhere in the world. But if somebody was to renovate and do stuff and be clever about it, they can make money.
You know, and back to the buckets. So if you just need that extra $5, you know, I'm having to keep myself on track. So if you only need to make another $500 or $1,000 a month. I've seen some really creative businesses. There's one in El Valle. I wanted to interview them, and they actually thought I was going to try to steal their business, and they shut me down. But I still love their business strategy. They bake bread every other week. So not even every week. They bake bread every other week. They take orders ahead of time. They only bake what's been prepaid for. And they deliver like on a very short 2-hour window on Friday or Saturday, can't remember.
If this is the same people, someone sent me a photograph. Like there's like for one of the buildings on the beach, there's a group chat and everyone's like, when are the bread people coming? They were frantic, like, when are the bread people coming? And then they were lined up because they didn't want to miss the window to get their bread.
No, because it's you know, it's
Must
like
be
that.
amazing
it's like the
bread.
soup Nazi that used to be on Seinfeld. I mean,
I want some of this bread.
You have this window, and if you don't make the window, your bread goes to somebody else, maybe the pigeons. But I love that as a business because I don't think it's making $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
But look, it's covering their.
I mean, working
their
once
delta.
every 2 weeks sounds amazing.
Right. And for a small amount of work, they're working a couple of days a month, and they're going to make enough to, you know, XYZ, fill in the gaps. Yeah. And there's a lot of cottage
It's a good little
businesses.
bread and butter business,
I
really,
think,
isn't it?
You know, and especially there are some other ones where they make essential oil. We buy eggs from somebody, you know, once a month we do an
best
egg
eggs.
deal in the parking lot, and we get 100 eggs. You know, where they have the chicken.
That is a
just
cracking
saying.
deal.
I mean,
Just
right
say it.
now, like
He
right
gets-
now,
no.
that's a hot industry.
Okay, it is.
No
but
more
She
yolks,
gets
please.
300 eggs, Clairson at a time. 300
sorry, what?
organic.
We fill our entire second refrigerator with eggs, and it lasts a month. So we do this once a month, and we pay probably double the going rate for eggs. But you know what? They've named the chickens that have laid those eggs, so they're super fresh.
They should be naming them after you.
Yeah, Melissa, Clariston, Stacy.
They are the best eggs. You can't beat them.
If you're enjoying this episode, please hit that subscribe button. And if it's not too much to ask, we'd love it if you would also press the like button. Think of it as an online tip if you like our service. Let's talk taxes.
Oh, great.
Panama taxes in.
I was going to say, whoever wants to talk about taxes?
We don't want to talk taxes, but taxes are a part of business. And right now, the areas
glug, glug.
in the areas in the world that are the most business friendly have the best tax benefits for companies. So if you're a big company, there's a lot of places where you can get tax-free in and out, like Panama Pacifico, which is right behind us here.
Costa del Este.
Costa del Este. You know, those are for the multinationals like Samsung, Adidas. If you have a company like that, call me. Yeah. 8675309. Anyway, but for a small company, if you're coming here and you want to open something small, maybe you want to start small and then grow. I think some of the tax benefits are one, you can write off almost everything, which in the United States, you can't do that anymore. They have severe limitations on what you can write off. And two, the tax rate, the flat tax is 25%, which again, you're starting low. So I think for a lot of people, again, business, if you want to, even if you wanted to come to Panama and make this the headquarters for your business, even if you're not doing the business in Panama, it can still be where your corporation is.
No, I mean, taxes compared to Australia, Australian tax is up around in the high 40s. So,
Whoa.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. That
Yeah.
deserves
Oh, yeah, I'm going to take a drink
Welcome
on
to
that one.
Panama.
Welcome to Panama. So that was, I mean, and then the individual tax rates are low. I think they're much lower again. Plus you've got 11,000 and tax-free.
The tax-free allowance.
Yeah,
Right.
the tax-free allowance.
The first
before.
11,000 you make on a personal basis are tax-free.
Yeah. So
So as expats, do you think we have an advantage or a disadvantage when launching a business here?
that is tough. That is a tough question.
I'm
I
gonna
think there
go,
is an advantage.
I'm going to go first because this is something I have my megaphone on a regular basis. I think we have a huge advantage. Panamanians have not taught to be entrepreneurial. Now, this may change in the future because they're starting to offer entrepreneurial and more business classes. But for the most part, Panamanians are taught to be employees. We, on the other hand, are taught, even our talk shows like Shark Tank, this teaches us how to be entrepreneurial. So if you have an entrepreneurial spirit and you want to do a good job, I think there's a lot of white space. I'm going to give an example. In the United States, for example, any major city, if you're going to open, and I don't care what business it is, I don't care if it's a car leasing business or a decor business or a dog sitting business or whatever, you're going to have so much competition. There's going to be a yellow pages of competition.
That's true.
Here, there may only be one or two. You might be the only one. So I think there's a lot less competition here. And if you're good and you work it like a real job, not waking up at 10 and starting at 1 and ending at 4.
Oh, we've got to change.
If you work it like a real business, I think you
wake-up
can be very
call we needed.
successful. You're like, that's what I'm doing.
I mean, with you, like the way you kind of came out of nowhere in 2021, and then all of a sudden you were Mr. Cleaning in the beaches area. But part of that is because
We didn't want to die.
that was that. But I mean, you very quick, because of the service that you were giving, if people always commented on that,
Yeah.
because you brought to it, I guess, a service delivery ethic that
I will say,
Wasn't-
word of mouth here is
word of mouth. If you can get in with that
It's
expat
fire.
business,
It's fire,
is
yes.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, there's Facebook groups, there's WhatsApp groups for buildings and towers and where people live and communities. And so word of mouth is absolutely massive. I think everything that's been said is correct. I think there is a massive advantage because, you understand customer service, and that's not knocking Panamanians. We need to help, when we have employees and whatever else. It's a great opportunity to give people training and help and sort of push them on and help develop their skills and give them opportunities they may not have had and give them, everything you can possibly give them. But, we have that advantage that we know that it's second nature to us. We don't need to be told that if we're running late, we pick up the phone and we say, look, I'm awfully sorry I'm running late. And we do that at the point before you would
Actually
be late.
late.
Yes.
Not at the point that I'm running late. Well, why didn't you call me half an hour ago then at the point that,
Right.
the time of before the time of our appointment or whatever else. And
This is known as Panama time.
yeah, and that's natural. And I think one of the things here is that you don't have to be great in business. You need to be good because you're going to stand out automatically that you are.
I love that.
Turning up on
I love
time.
that. I want to stop. I want us to say that again. Please, please say that again.
I think really, there's a good and bad side to this, obviously, but you don't have to be great in business here in Panama. You need to be good because, you have that opportunity to demonstrate that you're going to be on time, that you're going to keep people updated, you're going to give some after service. And like
Respond to
anybody,
emails.
Yeah, I have problems in my business like anybody else. There might be, I'd like to say, rarely somebody might say, oh, this hasn't quite dried properly as we thought it would, or there's, and I'll go straight back or whatever, the next morning, or you'll and then they're like, oh, great, it's fixed. Thank you. And nobody cares. Nobody cares that there was a problem. That, I've always been taught in business that a challenge is an opportunity to shine. So if that opportunity had not arisen, you wouldn't have been able to prove
full of wisdom today.
wisdom.
Wow. You're just like
Soy muy sabio.
dropping some
Smarter
nuggets
than
all
we
over
thought.
But you've got that opportunity to show people how you handle that situation, and they're like, "Oh, great!" And that's not a problem for people because you've gone out of your way to do what you should do, and not just disappear. And I will lower my price. I price everything online because I don't want to drive half an hour down to Coronado Country Club, all the way down right to the bottom, and then I don't want to talk to people for that long and then have half an hour back, and that's an hour and a half that I would have to charge the customer for, or
right.
just lose from family time.
Right.
So they send me a photo of an item of furniture and I price from that. Inevitably, that price is going to be wrong. So I never, at times, all the time, I have no idea, who am I? So I never put my price up, ever, because I've saved all those hour and a halves, right? So, if it turns out that sofa that I was going to be cleaning is bigger than I thought it was, well, I'm not going to charge more because I've saved all that time by not going.
That's your cost of business.
That's my cost of business.
Right.
If it's like, oh, actually, this is smaller and more straightforward than I thought, then I lower my price like you would expect a normal human being to do. Exactly. And then, and people think, oh, and they notice that, that you're honest and that you're not. And that's the difference when you're not trying to operate in this short-sighted, only live for this exact moment, mañana no existe kind of thing. That, well, if I can make, I said $60 and really it should be 50. But I really want that extra $10 today, so I'm not going to say anything. Well, but if you do say something, yeah, okay, you've lost that $10, but you never should have had it anyway, and you've done the right thing and you've been honest, and people are going to tell people.
You've gained a repeat.
Exactly.
That's right.
And I think that is, I'd like to think, a natural thing when you've had that kind of training. So again, that's not knocking Panamanians in any way, shape or form. But I do think that we have an opportunity as business owners to try and teach customer service, to try and help with opportunities and, and to give them every chance you possibly can to sort of upskill and train and, get every chance going.
Stacey, do you know what industries are close to expats?
No, I'm not an expert and I don't know all of them, but I know some of them like attorneys, doctors, retail stores.
Yeah, correct.
Accounting,
accountants,
engineering.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, so the highly professional,
which is
highly
understandable.
educated, you have to be a Panamanian.
Yeah.
My husband, after 12 years, finally became a Panamanian. So now all of these are open to him. So should I send him to medical school, law school, engineering? Maybe
Look, I think maybe law school because he could argue
with anybody,
anyone under the table.
Or he could open a retail store now.
He could.
Isn't that the dream?
He could have his own do-it center.
He would argue with people about the prices all day long.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's such a small country, right? It's a small country. So from a sort of government perspective, it's a good thing, right? Because you're going, well, these are our good jobs and we need to make sure there are enough good jobs for the people that we have here. That makes sense. I think anyone can see that kind of makes sense. But when you come in here, a lot of people are like, damn, why can't I do that? Right. And to a degree, sometimes you can be a teacher if you work for an international school.
Consult.
Yeah, and people do that. But, really you need to be retired to live here. You need to be working online, getting an outside income, or you need to be doing something, I suppose, fairly and squarely within those rules, here that you can do. And it's a tough list. That's what I do.
One of the things I like is, again, that the U.S. is so regulated because, the U.S. Constitution is 250 years old, whereas the Panama Constitution has only been around since 1972.
Baby.
So the laws haven't been pushed and tested, and it's not a litigious society. So I think it allows a lot more freedom. So unless there clearly is something that says you can't do that, well, guess what? You can do that. And to me, that's very refreshing and freeing.
Yeah, that's one thing about going into business because it isn't a super like in the US, you would always be worried about someone suing you for anything. Here, it's just culturally, it is not a litigious society.
You looked at me.
You looked at me funny.
But it's
gotten out of control.
Here, the other side of that is, because there isn't that culture, there isn't, like in the UK at times, you've got people like, hey, do you want to be in a car accident at Friday at 3, on Friday at 3 o'clock? And,
Do you know
because
that used to be not doing that.
That was your side hustle.
No, I used to work in insurance claim investigation.
Yeah.
So that was the thing we would investigate.
Yeah, exactly, because there
was
are,
my old
there is.
Friday at 3 accident.
Yeah, there is that
It was
litigation
normally
culture.
like 3 a.m.
And there
when
isn't,
no one was
because that
around.
isn't that litigation culture here. But the flip side of that, it makes things quite difficult, because certain insurances don't exist when you're in business. So you think, okay, right, I'm going to set up this business. I need this liability and I need that liability. And it's like, oh, where do I get that? Or should I just put some money, aside in case something unforeseen and horrible happens, because it's very difficult to get the kind of insurances you'd get somewhere else. So that's quite troubling because you're like, I don't feel protected in the same way that I would somewhere else being insured up to the eyeballs.
I have a funny insurance story.
Okay.
So when I first met my husband, he wasn't my husband, we were engaged, and I'm a widow. So I'm a big believer in insurance. So I went to have him insured for $1 million. Impossible.
Clariston, the $1 million man.
Yes. And they basically said no. And I said, why not? I've had this type of insurance for people before. And they said, well, what's going to stop you from killing him and getting the insurance money?
We're still trying to figure that out.
Well, nothing.
And I said, but if I did that, I'd go to jail. And they're like, no, but
Would you though?
we're positive if we give you $1 million policy, you're going to kill him and you're, So
Yeah.
that's been,
At least he sleeps well at night.
well, each year we were able to increase it a little bit. We're still not up to $1 million, but
But he's worth like $28 or something.
he's worth at 29 now, $29.
Fantastic. More when he's a surgeon.
Buying real estate in Panama isn't like buying back home. What you don't know can cost you. Before you search for properties online that might or might not be as advertised, go to choosepanama.com/contact and schedule a free 30-minute call. Our white glove service takes the stress out of buying abroad. So what's the craziest business challenge we've all faced in Panama?
I know for me, when we had an issue that happened, there was a flood in an apartment that we were working on, and it was a chain of events that had led to it. But that was a sharp business lesson for me about when things do go wrong and having to step up. And at the end of the day, the buck stopped with me. I had to be the person that made it right, because at the end of the day, it was my name, my face on the business.
Right.
So.
And I think one thing we've all learned, especially for these bootstrapped businesses, is you might start with a simple contract because, we come from the culture of a handshake. We do. You're too young. But we come from the culture where a handshake is, that's my bond.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, as you're in business longer, and especially when you're dealing with other expats who come from more litigious countries and have different expectations, I think we've all learned to, make our contracts longer. For property management, our contract is twice as long as the contract to purchase a
Buy a
condo.
house.
Yeah, I think it's just sort of, I haven't had, by the grace of God, any horrendous major dramas or anything like that, but it's getting around those processes, like we were saying before, not getting around, it's working through those processes, like we were saying about, employing staff and figuring out exactly how that business works, and sometimes it's just really unbelievably freaking difficult to get a straight answer from someone, because Panamanians can be very, very nice and they want to help you and they want to give you an
tell you what
answer.
you
And they want to know how to say yes.
Yeah.
But I think that goes back to what I said earlier about it being a young country, is there may not be an answer to that question, or they may not know the answer.
Yeah, but what we would do is say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know that, but I'll find that out." And they'll say, "Oh, well, what about this?" And to me, sometimes it doesn't matter if you're building a property and you're dealing with a builder, a construction person, or if you're dealing with a lawyer or whatever. It's like, "Oh, excuse me." You can say to the lawyer, and you get a similar answer to the builder. Sometimes it's like, "Do I need to?" Look, we've been told that a foundation or a corporation, guys, is better than having this property in our own name. Is that the case? And they say, sure, that's what you want, a foundation. I can make that for you right now. And you're like, no, I'm not. I'm just saying, I want you to. And it's really hard sometimes to get that advice, no matter who it's from, because they're like, oh, if that's what you want, we'll do it. Well, I don't know if it's what I want, because I want you to tell me like what's best. I'm not a builder. I don't know if that wall should be there or if it looks better without it, or what, guide me, help me, give me some ideas and whatever, or tell me that a foundation would be the best way to protect my assets, but there's a downside or there's a risk, but you should also know this, and just guide me through. And thankfully we've got better people in place now, but it's really hard, really hard.
That is something, because when it comes to a lawyer in your home country, you might think they're all pretty much on par, except if they're ridiculously expensive. But in Panama, even at the same price point, there's definitely good ones and ones that are less good.
Yeah.
So
That's a nice way of putting it.
yeah, and I think that's one thing, like for me, my Rolodex is what I bring to the table for sure. So it's not just my real estate knowledge, but it's my Rolodex, because I can connect people with the right person. I can connect them with the Amandas, who will do a great, amazing job for a fraction of the price as some other decorator. But I can also connect them with attorneys, because you have an experience like what you just said that is frustrating, because you're going to them for advice, and you're paying them for their advice. So here we are in paradise. Describe our perfect day. Is there a perfect day? How do we take meetings? Where do we go to unwind?
Okay, meetings and unwinding, like they kind of.
We have meetings all the time with wine, cheese.
No, that's true. That's
We
true.
have meetings that start at 3 and don't end till 10. And
Yeah.
our clients never want to leave, because we're, drinking and talking and eating cheese.
Because the wine is
But
this
no
good.
one,
I know.
no one ever gets dinner, but
Quite
they get
glorious.
cheese.
Well, I'm at the beaches, so it's very different. I think one thing that's very nice at the beaches is to have that blend of being able to just, be working and just be at the beach in 30 seconds. And, and it's calm and tranquil and whatever. And you can go to any number of coffee shops and little restaurants and sit and have a nice little workspace and somewhere to just sort of get something done as a break from the house. Or if you have an office, it's still nice just to get out. And it's a small community, so you get to know absolutely everybody. And there's, there's good and bad in that. But generally it's good. It's great, and you get to know people in the area, and it's nice. And I think there's that nice balance between being like an hour or so away from the city and being able to sort of have that quick cultural hit. And if you want something a little different, a different kind of restaurant or something else, and you just need that fix, get in the car.
I was like, oh, okay, I'll come to your office. And I'm like, let's just meet at a cafe and have a coffee or a
It's
wine.
my bedroom with my onesie.
Depends what time, yeah.
And it's interesting, because Amanda used to live at the beach, and now
did.
she's in the city.
Did the whole change. I mean, very, very different vibe. Like at the beach, I was living in a tower where that's where a lot of my clients were. I would see them in the city. That is different, because I don't know my neighbors. So it is a different vibe. I do miss the beach though. I was there earlier this week. I dropped in. I do miss it here, because you do become friends with, people who were clients, but then the job finishes, but then you still see them and you still.
They have asked you to leave so many times.
I know. They've said, okay, we're done now. Can you please
We're not
go?
giving you any more cheese or wine.
I know. Thank God I've got you guys. But then they come back, they come back for a visit. And they're like, hey, let's catch up. And so it is nice that, I guess, part of doing business here and being someone who lives here full time, you do get those people that come and go and they want to say hi and catch up. And
That's one of my favorite parts, is the people who come and go, because you have expats who are here a month, a year, 6 months a year. They're here a month, they're gone a month. And it's fun, because it's like a present. It's something new.
yeah, it's like, I'm in town. Let's go have dinner.
Well, I feel very fortunate with our location specifically. I mean, like you were saying, a 5-minute walk, we're on the beach, or, a ride up the elevator, we're at the pool, or we can walk over to the spa. Whatever you feel like that day.
Or 10 minutes, we're in the city,
Yeah.
At a shishi restaurant.
Yeah.
If someone wants to start a business in Panama today, what's the best piece or the number one piece of advice that you would give?
Talk to an attorney first.
Yes. Attorney and accountant.
Yeah,
for sure.
Do you research about I guess, what kind of business you want and if that's going to work here, and then do the research in the nuts and bolts and the boring part of business to make sure that you can make that work.
And if it's a business you've done before and you know how to do it, great. If it's a business you're just thinking of, I would say get on the ground here first, and then talk to people and make sure it's a business that really is going to work here.
Yep.
And start your work visa process.
Yeah, fast. Soon.
And I would say, one of the things we thought long and hard about before coming here is we would have a list. We made a long list of, if you think in some ways, it sounds a bit mean to say, but it's a chilled out, let's just say, relaxed vibe here in Panama in so many ways. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, it's behind the curve of the States and in other places in the UK.
There's not that now.
Yeah.
Emergency.
So write a list of every business you wish you'd started in the last 10, 15, 20 years in your home country, but somebody else beat you to and you wish you'd had that idea. Write that list. Come here. Live here. Get to know the place. Get to know the culture. Learn as much of the language as you possibly can. Get to know everything you possibly can. And then go through that list and then start to see, well, hang on, that doesn't exist here.
You're full of wisdom
There
today.
you go. Wow. But then find out why.
He's not just a pretty face.
Oh, it's not even a pretty face. Not even a pretty face. But ask yourself a ton of freaking questions. Okay, that doesn't exist here, and that's an awesome business. But why doesn't it exist? Is there a reason why? Is it inappropriate? Is it because people they're either an expat at the beaches or they live in the city and they're only there at weekends and then they go back again?
Right.
Or is it because you're in the city and everybody leaves at the weekend so there is no weekend trade or whatever? Just get to know it and ask a million questions.
Okay, we're in final Jeopardy round.
Oh, golly.
Let's say someone hands you a blank check and says, start another business in Panama or take this money and go somewhere else. What would you do?
Panama.
Yeah, no, I think I'd still keep Panama as my base.
I think Panama is so business friendly. I couldn't imagine doing this anywhere else. So,
The life that we get to have here while working, having businesses, but having a great life.
right. And to me, those are two separate things because the lifestyle is great, but it's so business friendly.
Yeah.
If you go about it in a smart way, I don't think there's any place else in the world right now that compares to Panama.
And if you take into account what you've just said and all that other good associated stuff, I 100% agree. But I also have not spent this long trying to learn Spanish to live anywhere else. So I'll take the check and Panama myself for the rest of time.
We have talked about this, and my kids have been here for 2 years now. Well, yes. And they're fluent in French and Spanish.
Yeah, I hate them.
Yeah.
It is. It's hard.
I can't say I hate them, but it's so frustrating.
It's liberating.
I hate
I'm
them
joking.
sometimes. I'm struggling. I'm still struggling trying to learn this Spanish.
It's a tough one.
Entrepreneurship. Any last words?
Tough work, but worth it.
I would all I would say is you have to. Jobs are not plentiful here. You don't think you're moving here and you're going to get a job. Don't think you're going to have your old career. Don't think that option exists. It doesn't. So if you're not remotely entrepreneurial in any way, it quite possibly isn't the country for you if you need to work.
You need to work. So there you have it, our unfiltered take on what it's really like to open a business and be entrepreneurial in Panama. And remember, when it comes to moving abroad, what you don't know can cost you. Until next time, we'll be here bringing you the real stories of life in Panama. Cheers!
Cheers.